Good morning, everybody. My name's Will Smear, and welcome back to another episode of the Lovable Survivor podcast. This week, in episode 27 of the podcast, we're going to be talking about everybody's absolutely favorite topic. I am not being facetious at all, or am I? It is stroke recovery and exercise. Rebuilding consistency and making it a part of your life after stroke. We're going to hop in to a variety of topics. We'll probably be all over the map as we are with every single episode. Because let's be honest, exercise is a big topic. People have lots of opinions. People are at different stages of their stroke recovery journey. And I think it's important we talk about things in the beginning, things in the middle, and then later on as we're getting a little bit better. And honestly, again, it's just such a wide ranging topic and it's very individualized. People have lots of opinions. You are doctors, your nurses, your therapists, physical therapists, occupational therapists. Everybody's going to have an opinion, including family and friends. And I just want to talk to you honestly, like I do every week. I know it's not easy. I know it's kind of cloudy. It's difficult. The beginning is particularly difficult. And I'm just going to talk about exercise, again, like every week from my point of view, how I got back into things, how I've slowly over time built consistency at the gym, consistency with now running. And before you hop off and you're like, exercise isn't for me, I hear you. I've been there. And I promise you, I have some really good tips this episode. The best way I could tell you is that when I had my stroke in December of 2019, I was damn near 500 pounds, like apparently just shy of 500 pounds when I went into the hospital, which means I was probably, if we're being honest, I was probably at some point over 500 pounds. And so I do know what it takes because now I'm down to just under 300. I still say 325 on the regular, but I am consistently below 300 now. I am continuing to drop weight, but I am less strict about it, and I have a lot of thoughts there too. So we're going to go through some key points in the journey, and we're just going to try to talk a little bit about everything today, and then we'll do deeper dives as there seems to be interest and as this show continues on in future episodes. Tips to consider, things to ask yourself, things to ask others that you might be working with. So many things. So I want to assure you that at the time of my stroke, like I said, I was 500 pounds. I believe I was 489 was the last number that I heard prior to being admitted. And so I know how hard it is to lose the weight. I've actually done it 2 times in my life where I've lost over 150 pounds. Like I've literally lost individual people in terms of weight. Now I'm a bigger guy, so I'm 6'8", 325 pounds or just shy now. So it's easier in a sense for me to lose weight dramatically, but I think all these things still apply. I really just want to harp on the fact that I was a bigger guy for a long time in my 30s. I was an alcoholic. I was a cigarette smoker. All the things I never was up until like my 20s. I very much played sports, so I do have that in my background. I love sports, and I guess when I got to college, partying and drinking kind of took center stage. Sports took a backstage, but I was still playing friends recreationally. Basketball was always a big thing. I lost a ton of weight in college. I was able to dunk most of my 20s, and it wasn't until I got back into bad habits in my 30s and having children and raising children, the things sort of took a turn for the worse for me. Obviously, having a stroke at 37, you have to do some significant work in a not great way to your body. So I'm not an expert. I'm not here to glamorize any of the things I did. I just want to be honest about them it's not even really inspirational. I know some people sometimes tell me like, oh, you're such an inspirational story to hear how you came back and like blah, blah, blah. And I do appreciate that. But I did do a lot of things incorrectly, and I wish I had done them correctly. So I really just want to say I know how hard this is from beginning to end. So when I had my stroke in December of 2019, so let's say at the start of 2020, I started inpatient rehab. Definitely lost some weight initially early on just because I was eating 3 proper meals a day. I was no longer drinking, no longer smoking. So for me, that was an easy way to start to lose the weight, but I was paralyzed completely from the stroke on my right-hand side of my body. I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't open my hand. I couldn't do anything with the right side of my body for quite a while, if I'm being honest. And so slowly over the last couple of years, things have opened up. My hand is, I wouldn't say where I want it, but it's definitely functional. Like I can't quite throw a ball, a baseball, a football, the way I used to, but that is coming back slowly. And I want to really say, again, everybody's stroke journey is different. Recovery is going to look different for everybody, because I remember being inpatient, and you might have been in a similar spot where if you're a younger survivor, you see older survivors and they're spry in their 70s. They were like a runner, but they had a stroke. And so they were already in better shape. The recovery process is, again, it's different for everybody, but it can be frustrating for sure. Because really, if you're paralyzed, the sort of undoing of that is complex. Like some people do sort of just suddenly become unparalyzed. Wasn't the case for me. Took a while. And it was frustrating, and it still is frustrating. But in the beginning, there are things you might need to be aware of. You don't necessarily need to know, but I think, again, I'm doing this from the perspective of like, I wanted to fix everything right away. That's how I am. I'm a fixer. Give me a problem, I will solve it. That was tough when I had my stroke. That was something I had to, I was keenly aware of very quickly that I was not going to be able to do things the way I once did as quickly, if ever. So again, that's where I'm talking about tears when it comes to exercise, because in the beginning I was paralyzed. My whole right side was very limited. I couldn't walk. It took me almost all of 2020 to walk. I did slowly make progress with the walker, and we're 3.5 years in here. My speech is a lot better, although I was just on a call, so I am a little tired already today in this episode. However, I just want to be honest and truthful. It happens. You get tired. Everybody does. It doesn't matter if you're a stroke survivor or not. So the beginning is tough. The beginning, you really just need to focus on whatever feels right to you. I think for me, it was like, okay, I worried about my family as a father, but I knew, okay, I've got to sort of figure this out. I want to do everything. I want to be immediately better. You know, that 10,000 hour thing. Like I was like, give me 10,000 hours. I am just going to take the first 10,000 hours of my, like from here on out, and I'm going to figure it out. Ambitious. Yes. The reality is slow down. Just start slow. It's going to be a process, and anything shy of several years, you're going to consider that a win as you get further into your journey. So I would say start slow. When I say exercise in the beginning, I mean do what you can do at therapy. Do what feels comfortable. If you can walk, that's great. If you can walk slow, even better. If you can walk with a walker, or like really at inpatient, you're taking care of what they're telling you to do because they want you to be safe, as you should be. But looking back now, I could say there are things that if I had been aware of them earlier on, it might have helped accelerate my recovery. These were things that nobody mentioned to me. They're things that I kind of figured out along the way, which is why I share them. I mean, I did an episode earlier this year. So if you're newer to the podcast and you didn't catch that one, I did one on breathing and nasal breathing in particular. I know they give you a little thing at a lot of hospitals, a lot of inpatient rehab facilities, the spirometer with the thing that you blow into. I should have brought it out, but I have one laying around. I have a million of them laying around still. Helpful, yes, but nobody shows you how to use it. But breathing is one of those things that early on, if you're aware of your condition and you're like, I was a mouth breather. I still am a mouth breather at times. I really have to work at it. This is nasal breathing and breathing. The reason I was always turned off from it is because breathwork just sounds like something I would never be into. Lo and behold, breathwork is really just breathing exercises. And so once I realized that, I had that aha moment, I immediately started working on it because I was like, oh, wow, I feel better. Like it helped with brain fog. It helped with just blood flow in general, which I've had issues with in my life because as a bigger guy, I had undiagnosed everything prior to my stroke because I never went to the doctor like a dummy. So like a lot of medications that I'm on, I can kind of slowly start to come off. You know, breathing isn't going to fix everything, but it is a really powerful thing to consider working on in the early stages because it requires little to no effort in terms of actual exercise, but it will surprisingly motivate you to exercise because think about your life. And if you're somebody who struggled with running or even just walking at a faster pace or just playing sports. Maybe you like sports, but you always get cramps. Like your breathing may be the problem. It may not be what you think. So if you're able to fix your breathing, that's a really big thing. And one thing that I realized a couple of years into my recovery, because again, nobody mentioned this stuff, but as a stroke survivor, and I'm not saying everybody, but some of the leading causes of stroke are obviously genetics. You can't do anything about that. But if you're a heavy drinker, maybe you're not an alcoholic, just somebody who is a heavy drinker, you were a cigarette smoker, these things can lead to stroke. There's a good chance, especially as you get older, if you were or are a smoker, you may stop playing sports. You may stop working out because I was a smoker in my 20s, but I played sports. I lifted weights. I was in shape. It wasn't until I became the smoker, drinker father, which sounds terrible, but like I was raising kids. I had fewer friends that were still playing sports, so I wasn't staying in as good a shape. And cigarette smoking often, not all stroke survivors are cigarette smokers, but a lot, right? And so if you're able to quit smoking once you have your stroke, I highly recommend that. I'm sure your doctors do. I'm not going to say you should, but you probably should because you start to realize like, oh, I don't really like smoking anyway. Like it's now I'm that guy. I smell it on other people. I'm like, ugh, I can't believe I did that for 20 years. That's terrible. And having had a stroke, I can tell you, if I really knew that smoking was going to lead to stroke, I would have stopped immediately 20 years ago. That's an unfortunate thing that I can't take back. It's just now I know. And so for me, smoking and drinking, no longer a part of my life. But I wasn't immediately breathing. I was definitely breathing better. Let's be clear. I think your breathing is better once you stop smoking and drinking, but still like I've been working out for a couple of years, but I wasn't into running. I still hated running. I was like, running is stupid, blah, blah, blah. But I got into biking, and biking kind of led into running because I was like, I don't smoke anymore. I should. Theoretically, I'm walking better. Like, maybe I could run. And so I went on that nasal breathing journey. All that to say, nasal breathing, something to look into. You can go way off the deep end. You can go back and listen to the earlier episode this year. I had lots of thoughts on it. We could probably talk about it again in a couple of weeks. But breathing is something you can do early on as a stroke survivor, because if you're limited, that is a great thing to do. It's just something to work on while your body kind of begins to heal itself, where you may not be able to run for a while after your stroke, or you may not even be able to walk. But in order to be living and be a stroke survivor, you have to breathe. And so optimizing your breathing while waiting for your body to repair itself and untangle itself and build up stamina and strength, breathing is a really, 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 really great thing to get into. I can't emphasize and stress it enough. I mean, again, take it from a guy who thought breathwork was bullshit. I still think that's not the right term, because I think a lot of people get turned off from breathing better because of that term breathwork. It just sounds dumb. It's not, but it sounds not so great. So that's an early thing for you. I mean, again, you might have a different take, but I just found that to be really helpful early on. And then so I would talk to doctors. I would talk to physical therapists. We worked on my walking. Once I was able to kind of move away from the walker, I did have what's called an AFO, which is ankle foot orthotic, to help with drop foot. And I slowly, over time, I was able to build up a little bit of strength, a little bit of stamina. If you've never been in a gym, I know it can be uncomfortable if the gym is not your thing. I mean, it can be uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me to go back to the gym, to be clear, in 2021. That was a year and a half into my stroke. I decided to leave my full-time job at that point and work on my own as an entrepreneur. And so it freed up more time for the gym. I definitely took advantage of it. I started slow. I started with things I could do. I did wind up getting a personal trainer who had worked with survivors previously, just because I wanted that knowledge and that help in the gym. I mean, obviously, 6'8", 300. Back then, I was probably still 375. I'm a big guy. I wanted to be safe. I didn't want to push too hard, but I wanted to push, and that's unique to me and my personality. And I had a sports background. I have children. I'm at a different place in my life than the majority, but not everybody. And some people are way older and they want to get back to it too. And so you have to understand your limitations. You do have to be safe. I mean, there's no point in surviving a stroke and being sort of laissez-faire about things. Like, if you're, be aggressive, be however you want to be in your recovery, but like, don't overdo it. And sometimes I hear that I'm overdoing it from other people. However, know yourself best, because not everybody is you and you are not everybody. And I always say this too: listen to what other people have to say, check yourself, have a conversation with yourself. Is what the person said applicable to you? Do you need to focus on it? Is it just something that everybody hears and everybody says to each other, but doesn't always apply to everybody? I find that happens to be the case a lot with me, is that, most people shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. However, not most people are 6'8", 325 pounds, raising 3 kids and doing the things that I do. My daughter just did it to me yesterday. She's like, yo, you need to take it easy. You need to take it easy. All right, you're not wrong. Probably correct. But like, let me, you're right. Let me cool down. Let me see where I'm at and let me adjust. So again, there are many tiers to exercising. There are many approaches to exercising. There are different modes. It's not just, again, breathing is a big one. I think figuring out your diet is part of this exercise. For me, I started exercising because I was like, oh, well, I'm eating healthy, but I guess in a sense, it's like some of my doctors, for certain reasons, were asking me to eat a lot of protein. So I was like, all right, well, I'm eating a ton of protein, a lot, all good, healthy food, but I was still eating, the quantity was still quite a bit. So that's, for me, I was like, all right, well, I need to exercise to balance this all out. And what I realized was that fixing my breathing helped me tremendously in a lot of ways, mentally and physically. And that is part of, I really try to use exercise as sort of motivation, but also a reward. But also this strange thing started happening. It's like when you don't do it for a very long time, or you've gotten into bad habits, I feel like as a survivor, things are hard enough. So like I started to realize some kind of small workout in the morning, like shortly after breakfast, before I start my day, or before I intensely start my day, I guess, depending on the day, is a good way to help me as a stroke survivor really kind of boost that energy to get through the day. Later, I started adding runs. Now I run in the morning. Now I run in the evening. I do a combination. I probably do too much exercise, if I'm being honest, because I'm no longer addicted to cigarettes and alcohol, but I probably am addicted to working out. My take on that is I'd rather be addicted to working out, being athletic and getting in shape and being in shape, because it just, I don't know, it's fun. And I have been working on scaling back some of the running because I think I did overdo it. Probably even over through the summer. So I am trying to kind of scale it back to a more reasonable amount of miles. I'm not shooting necessarily for 120 miles a week, but I am up there. But again, that I'm further along now. If you're starting out, I'll be honest, 10 months ago, I was 2.5 years into my stroke recovery. I had just started running at the age of 39, thinking, I hate this. This is dumb. And a couple weeks into it, because of all the breathwork I did leading up, and because of all the biking I did and Pelotoning last summer leading up into the fall, I finally was at a place where I was like, okay, let's do that. Like run 3 minutes. And when I say run, I mean stroke running. And what I mean by stroke running is I'm not running the way I ran when I was 20. I'm running probably more like a shuffle. Some people think it's walking. I don't really care what it is. And you shouldn't either. That is a big takeaway here. I'm just going to interrupt myself because it can be uncomfortable. As a survivor, you can feel awkward, especially if you're younger and somebody like me who was prior to my stroke. In my 20s, I was definitely in shape. I was a big dude. I'm a tank. Like looking awkward in the gym is something I never really dealt with. But I got over that quick because I was like, nah, I don't care what I look like. I don't care how much weight somebody else is pushing. Like I've survived a stroke. I have MS. Like I don't need to push 325 on the bench anymore. Like I'm good. Whatever I need. Start at 95, work up. If you start with the bar, start with the bar. If you can't even do the bar, don't worry. Do a weight plate. Do a 25-pound plate. Do what you can do. If you don't feel good about a gym and you have the opportunity and financial means to do some stuff at home, do it at home until you're comfortable. Build up that 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 strength that you feel like you need to be comfortable in the gym. Go later. Go to a place that's 24 hours. Go to a Planet Fitness. Like I know some people crap on Planet Fitness, but go wherever you feel comfortable. And if that is your home, start with bands. If you don't have the money for like any kind of weightlifting, or you don't have the desire or space for weightlifting, start with bands. The point is, start. If cardio has always been a struggle, start with fixing your breathing. These are all very sort of, this all makes sense in the grand scheme of things, but I could tell you as somebody who was there, it never occurred to me to fix my breathing in order to get into running. Never. And I had no idea just how crappy I had been breathing my whole life. Because nobody really educates you on this stuff until you figure it out, or until you hear it from somebody. And honestly, I probably heard it from other people, but nobody said to me, Will, listen, if you fix your breathing, you won't hate running nearly as much. If somebody had told me that in any one of the 39 years before I started running and liking running, like if any coach, if any basketball coach, football coach, baseball coach, golf coach, anybody, a teacher in math class, even if they stopped me and just said, hey, I know you're not an athlete of mine, but I know you're an athlete, and I see you struggling and huffing and puffing. Here's what you do. Give it to me. Give it to me. I mean, I am sitting here looking like a maniac into this camera today, telling you, if I had known this, everything could have been different. Now, would I have listened? Maybe not. That's a fair assessment. People ask me that all the time. But I got to be honest, I'm the kind of guy, if they were just like, Will, I'm telling you, spend 10 minutes, 5 days a week for 2 weeks. Do these exercises for breathing and just see where you're at. That would have helped tremendously. Well, that time I was in inpatient rehab. If somebody sat down and said, hey, this spirometer is good, here are some other things you could try. Again, with exercise, it's so many mental and physical barriers. Like a lot of people, you always hear, oh, I don't want to. Or I feel like crap. And I get it. If you don't weight lift, let's say squats, right? Because nobody loves squats really. And if you do, you're sick. Now, I love squats now, but if you don't do squats for like a couple months or a couple of years, your legs aren't going to like you the day after you do squats. You have to sort of just sit with that pain for a little bit. But if you slowly work through it, it will make a difference. The thing about exercise is, yes, you get exhausted, you get tired, you get hot, you get sweaty. You don't, all these things. I'm sitting there sweating every week. But my point is, you build up a routine, you build up the strength and stamina. Eventually, your legs and arms don't get as tired. You can start really light. If you're worried about like having dead arms and you don't want dead arms, start super light. Nobody's saying you have to go bench press 300 pounds. You don't have to bench press and just do the motion without weight. Like start to build up strength, because it'll help you get through the physical and mental barriers that you're putting up that you probably are only really in your head in a lot of cases. Now, if you have deficits from the stroke or brain injury, yeah, of course, there are limitations, but there always is a workaround. I don't know your particular case. I don't even want to make a suggestion, but like just talk with your team, talk to other people. What can I do while I'm trying to break through this next step to the next level? Again, that's where the tiered thing comes in. I think these are all, it's intense, it's hard, it's difficult, but eventually that consistency starts to kick in. I'm only seeing it now, 3.5 years in, looking back like, okay, I wouldn't have to do as much physical therapy all the time if I had just done these exercises, or I might be further along on my desire to run faster if I really did a little bit of lifting, especially leg work in the gym, and maybe ran a few less miles a day instead of doing a half marathon every day this summer. Well, maybe if I did like 7 or 8 miles and did an hour of weightlifting, and that's hindsight's always 20/20, but these are things that make a difference. If you can't really walk at a good pace, start by walking like your pet. If you have a particular, probably nobody's walking a cat, but if you have a dog, you'll walk the dog. Is walking the dog the best exercise? No, but it is a start. That is the big thing here. Starting to build the habit. Also, when you're starting out to exercise and you don't love exercising, besides fixing your breathing, consider as a motivator a reward. If you walk your dog for 10 minutes, try walking it for 15. Push yourself a minute a day. On Monday, you're like, I'm going to walk the dog for 10. Do 11 on Tuesday. Do 12 on Wednesday. Whatever can help you motivate you to build that consistency with exercise is super, super important. And I know that a lot of us get discouraged. I know I have in the past. It's like you get on a good path and you get hurt. Okay? Scale it back. Take the time to recover. Take whatever amount of time you need to recover, but then get back to it slowly and realize, okay, maybe you pushed too hard. Why did you get hurt? Ask yourself those questions. Was it a fluke? Was it it could be any variety of things, really. So just consider that. Again, there's so many things when it comes to exercise, and everybody's got an opinion and everybody's got tips. I think really it's a lot. I will say finding a place that you feel safe and comfortable is probably number one. Like, people always ask me, why do you run in the neighborhood? Well, I run the same like kind of loop in my neighborhood, and I run it like anywhere between 30 and 40 times a day, which takes me somewhere between 10 and 20 miles. I did like 19 miles yesterday. I never left the neighborhood. But I'm weird. I can handle that. I like the monotony. I put on some music and I run safely in my neighborhood, on the sidewalk, in the street a little bit during the day. It's just what feels right for me. Some people like more variety. I also have a Peloton tread as of last week. I like that as well. I was running a little bit. I started going on the treadmill at the gym this spring, which in turn was amazing. And then they moved the treadmills about this far apart. So literally these big ass treadmills at the gym are this is my thumb, this is my pinky. They are spaced out that far apart. So I have since canceled my gym membership because I no longer like that gym. I went there for 2.5 years, and the guy is like, oh, I saw you canceled. I'm like, yeah, because you moved the treadmills so close that like somebody could hop on next to me and start sweating on me. And I'm not about that. Like, I need a little bit more personal space than that. It's really weird. It's strange. It's a whole other thing. I don't get it. Treadmills at my gym are one of the most used things, and nobody likes it, but nobody says anything, so nothing changes, and it's just a shame. But I now have my own treadmill at home, which I absolutely love, and will use it forever. Peloton tried it. Shout out to Peloton. Always an amazing product. I got the bike last year. Shockingly loved it, and then this year decided once the gym started doing that with the treadmills there, I was like, nope. Getting the Peloton tread, and I am, been waiting for it for a while, but I finally arrived last week, and I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it on mute. Love all the Peloton instructors, but I am not looking to. Yeah. If you've ever seen Sebastian Maniscalco's specials, he talks a lot about the gym and the people at the gym, and I feel exactly the same way. Because on top of the fact that treadmills are this close to each other at my gym, like usually if it's not too busy, there's people, I take the end, somebody takes the other end, maybe somebody hops on in the middle. Like I get at 5 o'clock, somebody eventually has to go in between the three people. But I'm always surprised when people hop up next to me. I'm like, really? Like, of all the places and the options, you want to pick going next to the 6'8" guy running? I don't know. Very interesting. Yeah, gyms are a fascinating place on the human experience, and I sometimes I'm like Sebastian, like I can barely finish my workout because I'm so concerned with being concerned with other people, and they drive me crazy. Like you always see those people like, what? Just. I'm not a great runner, but like I'm trying to just run on the treadmill. The worst I do is like I hold on to the side sometimes for balance purposes. But if you got to do a side shuffle, do that at home. Like who are these people? Don't be that person. Don't be the. I don't think any stroke survivor is doing this, but like if you really feel like you can't squat without taking your shoes off at the gym, I'm sorry. Get a squat rack and do it at home in your garage. Take off your shoes at home. If you're at the gym doing squats, I've been doing squats my whole life. I could squat 600 pounds, even at this stage of my life, as a stroke survivor, 40-year-old stroke survivor. I could squat 600 pounds, and I don't need to take my shoes off. So you don't either. Sorry, that drives me crazy at the gym. Yeah, just leave your shoes on at the gym. I don't care. Man, that drives you crazy. You're not. Yeah. If you want to squat 600 pounds and you're going for a personal record and you're not as big as me, but you think you could do 600 pounds on the squat rack, okay, maybe you could take your shoes off. If you feel like that's going to get you to 600 pounds, I'll spot you that one. But anyways, sorry, just a little rant there. So yeah, personal reflections, the gym and exercise are important. The recovery journey is different for everybody. Do not try to overdo it. Do not do things faster than you're capable of, but know that the gym is good for mental and physical rehab. We talk a lot about that on this show, not just the physical, but the mental and emotional toll stroke can play in our life, or things can go awry. We can have thoughts and feelings. Just there's a lot going on. Sometimes I found exercise is a great way to get clear, to step away from whatever I'm doing, whether that's working as a stroke survivor and being frustrated with certain things. Like, it's a good place to let off steam. And I found that running really, the breathing in particular, but breathing has led to running. They both work in conjunction. Even if I'm walking or hiking, that's another great one is hiking. Not a big hiker, but Peloton tread. I'm into it on the tread. I'm not an outdoor hiker, but some people like it. And that's a good way, low impact, a little bit more than you would get from just walking on flat ground. Probably, honestly, a little bit more than you get from running sometimes. But to each their own, try it out. I think it's a good route to go. Definitely lower impact for sure. And then again, know that there's challenges to overcome, barriers, hurdles. Some of these are mental, some of these are physical. It just takes time. Celebrate your wins. Share your wins. Find an accountability partner. I always talk about this, and it is still on the horizon. There are some things in the works. Like I'm trying to do a few things, really kind of refactoring some things with my businesses, but I really do want to build a community online. I think there is a need for stroke survivors to band together. There's a lot of paths. There's a lot of different segments. There are physical therapists now doing a lot of content creation. There are occupational therapists doing content creation. There are a lot of people who want to help, like myself. I'm just trying to tell my story in hopes that it helps somebody else. Hopefully you get that through this podcast. I just know I don't know everything. I don't claim to know everything. I really I'm now thinking back, I'm 40 years old. Like the reason I talk about exercise is because somewhere in my journey, and this is sort of like kind of comprehensive, but like it's okay in the beginning to not know where to go or what to do or how to feel. It's a lot. We've talked about it many times on this podcast, but for me, I think I realized I was like, okay, I'm a younger survivor. I don't know that anybody is quite like me, and that's okay. I accept that. I understand that now. Again, I'm 40 years old, so I know it's on me to figure it out. Nobody's going to figure things out for me. People will be kind to answer questions and generally help in any way they can, especially other survivors are always happy to share. But there are not a lot of people like me. So my point is, I kind of got sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. And I have been since my stroke, really trying to correct and figure things out. And I think for a lot of people, exercise is a great step to help kind of break yourself of the feeling you might have of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. It's like, okay, I had the stroke. I'm aware of it. I've corrected some things, but I know I can do more now, and that's okay too. Not everybody's ready immediately to start exercising. It might take a year, it might take 2 years, it might take 5 years, it might take 10 years. My point is, as long as you're alive, as long as you're breathing, and you want better for yourself, these are things to consider. And it can help in a lot of ways that you're maybe not seeing or thinking. So just, yeah, I think there are some revelations to have. And people always ask me, how did you get into this? I was like, I just got sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. I knew I was capable of more. I just wasn't sure how to go about it. I wasn't sure what I wanted. And you hear people say it a lot. And I think it's true in this case for me, is that there isn't a wrong way to exercise. Like the only wrong way to exercise is not exercising. Like however small you need to start, take that initiative, push yourself, ask questions. There are so much to it. But again, I just want to share that with you. I hope maybe this inspired you. Again, I didn't start running until last year, 2.5 years into my stroke at age 39. Really take to running. I did build up. I didn't just start running 13 miles. I really very slowly, I wouldn't even say slowly, but over time, I just kept saying one more lap, one more lap. One more lap has turned into quite a few miles a day. I try, but I don't always do 10 miles a day. That's a lot. That is a lot. You don't have to do that. You probably shouldn't do that, if I'm being honest. I just want to reiterate that these micro progressions do add up over time. So if you figure out a way to be consistent for yourself, you'll get there. If you want to get there, you can get there. People will help. People will make suggestions, give you tips. If you need that help, always reach out to me. Before we wrap up this week's episodes, a couple things I want to talk about that I've been talking about, thinking about. Not a lot this week. Two Bears, One Cave, great podcast with Bert and Tom Segura. On the comedy front, Whiskey Ginger, Andrew Santino, loving binging a lot of his episodes. All three of those guys are great. Whitney, as always, is fantastic. Always watching her stuff. It does seem like it is kind of towards the end of summer, so a lot of podcasts and shows are taking like a little bit of a break. I thought about that myself because I don't have a ton going on outside of this podcast. I am working on some things that I'll talk about once I actually do them or launch them or whatever. Saw an interesting post yesterday. I'm actually not going to push the newsletter for Survivor Science. I do think there are some interesting things happening in my world. I am trying to consolidate things So yeah, not too much to promote this week. I am still offering free phone calls, consultations, paid and free on hub.lovablestarter.com. You can go there, check out details on the podcast website. DJing, as you can see right there, still going strong there. Doing some new things, kind of. I don't know where we're gonna go with it. Really, what I'm trying to do is take that hobby slow so I don't burn out in 2 weeks. I am building up some playlists. I am slowly, a little bit of learning each day on that hobby front. Doing a little bit of woodworking as well that I mentioned last week because I have some stuff that needs to go up back here on the background. Got some cool things working there. Books. Got a lot of good books in the queue that I picked up last week. However, I am still... Yeah, I've been doing a lot of work on the businesses, doing a lot of DJing, a lot of tutorials to learn record box, mixing. There's a lot to DJing. It's even though I've been around the DJ world and EDM and music in general for a long time now, 40 years on Earth. I was a bartender. I worked the doors in the clubs in Miami. I worked Ultra a couple times back in Miami days. I used to go to Ultra. I used to go to clubs. Like now I'm just really immersing myself in the DJ world. And as usual, there's no shortage of information, techniques, things. So I'm kind of learning the basics. Last night, like I finally put like 70, 80 songs into a playlist and I'm going through them. And I was like just practicing last night. And before I knew it, 2 hours went by. I just like, honestly, I wish I recorded it because it was like a whole set, honestly, and it was pretty good. I mean, my middle child was sitting out after his shower before bed. He's watching me DJ last night, and I'm just like doing a set, and he's jamming out, and I'm like, all right, cool. So yeah, DJing is going well, having a lot of fun there. So I'm still reading Titan. So yeah, I don't have a ton to mention, but otherwise. Exercise, big topic, lots to talk about with it. I know I'm rambling at this episode at this juncture of the podcast. So yeah, I am going to go finish working out for today. I hope I really want everybody to know that if I can do it, you can do it. I was damn near 500 pounds. Like I said, probably was over 500 at some point, way back down, but still far from where I want to be. I know it's not easy. I know it's super difficult. However, I can help. Reach out. You got thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, things that you're curious about. Again, you can book a call at hub.lovablestarter.com, podcast.lovablestarter.com for anything you want to send me, any questions you have, happy to chat. Anyway, I can help. Let me know. Anyways, we'll wrap up episode 27 of The Lovable Survivor, and bye for now.